Chapter 746. Punish you out of battle. It looks like Samsara is unable to hold on. Of course, tyrannical ambition would pay attention to Samsara's situation. In the end, Zhang Yu carefully worded his report because, under the usual reasoning, Samsara should be on the offensive, while heavenly justice and conquering clouds would be suppressed. However, Samsara was the side labeled as being unable to hold on. For the side on the offense to be unable to hold on, Zhang Yu could only think of the word pathetic to describe them. Sigh, Zhang Jinji sighed deeply. If he had known that Samsara's tactic was a false alarm, if he had been a bit more courageous and ignored their movements, they would still be in an advantageous situation. Samsara probably wouldn't have actually gotten anything done with their move. He had been too cautious and messed up his own troops. It was too late to regret though. Xiao Shiken and his two guilds weren't opponents for Zhang Jinji and tyrannical ambition. In terms of pure strength, Xiao Shiken's side would not be able to contest against tyrannical ambition, but stalling for time was a completely different matter for these tacticians. With Samsara broken apart, Xiao Shiken immediately pulled back, clearly to coordinate with Yi Chu's two guilds. If that happened, tyrannical ambition would have an even harder time shattering the stalemate. Samsara's guild leader, Three Realms Six Paths, noticed this scene. He immediately halted and looked backwards. He suddenly spoke, right now, tyrannical ambition is pushing their way over there. When the two sides are in a deadlock, perhaps there might be an opportunity for us to join. That'll depend on the circumstances. Wei Chen reacted instantly. If that kind of situation from before is replicated, of course we can, but if the pressure put on by tyrannical ambition isn't strong enough, giving their opponents energy to spare, we might not be able to gain the advantage. You're right, Three Realms Six Paths nodded his head. We'll see, Wei Chen spoke in a serious tone. His analysis was correct, but he didn't give Three Realms a complete picture. The Four-Guild Alliance had Yi Chu and Xiao Shiken, two master tacticians, to deal with Zhang Jinji. They didn't need to pull back and shrink into a defensive ball like Zhang Jinji had needed to do before. The two tacticians were enough to keep tyrannical ambition's troops busy. The alliance also had two powerful attackers, Yi Chu and Su Mucheng. Three Realms Six Paths anxiously waited for an opportunity to appear. Wei Chen's thoughts wandered elsewhere. He was already lusting for his level 70 Death's Hand. A long-desired wish of his was on the verge of being fulfilled. Wei Chen was starting to get emotional. Hurry up and kill the boss. Wei Chen couldn't bear it anymore. He took off his headphones and urged Yi Chu to pick up the pace. What are you getting impatient for? It's just a matter of time. Yi Chu's confidence put Wei Chen's heart at ease. He was still determined to give him a helping hand. He didn't bother listening to Three Realms Six Paths observations. He needed to guard against any unexpected occurrences. If there were, he could still remind Yi Chu, even if it wasn't convenient for him to stop it from happening. Wei Chen's warlock, Sky Travel, began to turn. Wei Chen was being wary of any surrounding movements. Blue Brook Guild had arrived quite early, but tyrannical ambition had forced them into a submissive state. It seemed like they were beginning to move again. Be careful of Blue Brook Guild, Wei Chen immediately warned Yi Chu. Right when Wei Chen finished warning Yi Chu, Blue Brook Guild acted. Blue Brook Guild had suffered fairly heavy losses from tyrannical ambition's previous attacks, but now the dead had revived and they had rallied together. Lu Hanwen's flowing cloud had once again returned to their troops. Since they had been waiting and watching the entire time, they clearly still had a plan. Now that everyone was ready and the two sides were in a deadlock, they immediately made their move. Blue Brook Guild could rely on Lu Hanwen as a blade. Lu Hanwen didn't dare to act rashly anymore. Flowing Cloud carefully followed the troops to meet the enemies. Several support classes accompanied him. As soon as he started moving, countless buffs were placed on him. At this instant, who knew how many times stronger Flowing Cloud had become as he bravely charged forward. I'm here, Lu Hanwen shouted. Blue Brook Guild's sh*T stick is back, Lulan / reported helplessly. Yi Chu had listened to Wei Chen's warning, so he was already paying attention to Blue Brook Guild. When he saw the countless buffs on top of Flowing Cloud, he couldn't help but smile. He's been buffed quite a lot. You keep holding on, Yi Chu told Xiao Shiken. He and Su Mucheng turned towards Blue Brook Guild and headed over. Lu Hanwen's Flowing Cloud had already slaughtered his way to the front like a general showing off his might. Su Mucheng took aim. A beam of light exploded from Chasing Haze's cannon. Lu Hanwen reacted quickly. His character flipped over the beam of light, dodging it. The instant flowing cloud landed, a spear emanating magic undulation stabbed towards his body, instantly piercing his body. A dazzling magic explosion erupted. Flowing cloud was blasted into the air as he yelled, "Who is it?" "The most troublesome one," Yishu grinned. F***CK, stop playing around. Hurry up and get rid of Blue Brook Guild, Wei Chen went over and roared. Afterwards, he sat back down, put on his headphones, and said in a serious tone, "Don't be rash. We have to wait and see whether Blue Brook Guild will give them enough trouble or not. We're not any weaker than Blue Brook Guild, but what happened when they fought against tyrannical ambition? Just one might not be enough, but with Blue Brook Guild in us, that'll make 3. 3 guilds together might be enough to force open an opportunity." Three Realms Six Paths wasn't muddle-headed. His clear-headed thinking worried Wei Chen. He obviously knew that if 3 guilds fought against the alliance, it was hard to say how the situation might turn out. Why else did he urge Yishu to hurry up and get rid of Blue Brook Guild? If 3 guilds work together, we might able to disrupt the balance, but will we be the ones to benefit? Wei Chen continued to try and stop Three Realms Six Paths from acting. Under normal circumstances, this is still a good opportunity, but with those 2 gods fighting it out evenly matched, I feel like if we act too hastily, we'll only be helping tyrannical ambition, Wei Chen slowly said. He wasn't speaking slowly to show his careful thinking, but to stall for more time. Three Realms Six Paths didn't say anything and carefully pondered. Wei Chen hastily racked his brains to search for more excuses. Tricking the person in front of him wouldn't work. Three Realms Six Paths was the guild leader of a large club. He was probably more experienced in the game and boss hunts than even Wei Chen was. His greatest flaw was experience dealing with gods, so Wei Chen felt like exaggerating the strength of a god would work. Think of before. Why did we fail to get the boss? Because when we broke through their defenses, tyrannical ambition shrunk back, intentionally throwing the boss in front of Yi Chu and us. They wanted us to compete against Yi Chu. How could we be Yi Chu's opponents? These gods are too crafty. The current situation is still the same. If we join the fray, even if we break apart Yi Chu's defenses, Yi Chu would probably be as crafty as Zhang Jinji and throw the boss in front of us. I feel like this isn't an opportunity for us. Wei Chen continued to analyze. Then what do you think we should do? Three Realms Six Paths asked. Wait and see the situation more clearly, Wei Chen said solemnly. Sigh, Three Realms Six Paths sighed. Wei Chen wasn't speaking nonsense. Three Realms Six Paths felt that it was reasonable enough. If they pushed Yi Chu away, they had to fight against Zhang Jinji. If they pushed away Zhang Jinji, they had to fight Yi Chu. Those 2 gods could be half dead and would still crush them easily. Wei Chen saw that Three Realms Six Paths couldn't come to a decision and finally let out a sigh of relief. He immediately checked the situation on Yishu's screen. The situation was a carbon copy of the previous one. The only difference was that it was Blue Brook Guild instead of Samsara. Blue Brook Guild may have a powerful expert like Lu Hanwen, but a sharp blade without a good swordsman couldn't be utilized to its full potential. Against a normal guild, it was a huge advantage, but against gods like Yishu and Zhang Jinji, Lu Hanwen's blows tickled. This time, Yishu personally fought him. By coordinating the troops to support him, even the buffed Flowing Cloud could only survive for a few short breaths before dying. Flowing Cloud's death dealt a huge blow to Blue Brook Guild's morale. Their strongest expert kept dying instantly again and again. Not matter who they were up against, their expert just died with a flop. How were they supposed to battle against these gods? After fighting messily for a while, Blue Brook Guild couldn't find any opportunities. Their guild leader, Changing Spring, was straightforward and simply typed, "Retreat." Blue Brook Guild once again withdrew dejectedly. Wei Chen saw this scene and immediately started discussing with Three Realms Six Paths. Blue Brook Guild couldn't hold on at all. They only started fighting for a bit and had to run away. They're even worse than us. Sigh, it's completely out of our control. Three Realms Six Paths empathized with Blue Brook Guild. Yishu didn't go back to defend after forcing Blue Brook Guild to retreat. He directly led his team to attack tyrannical ambition from the side to counterattack in the passing. Zhang Jinji reacted quickly and immediately sent troops out to defend. However, as soon as his offense towards Shao Shikan weakened, Shao Shikan immediately seized the opportunity. He deserved to be reputed for defending before counterattacking. As if an attack had been brewing the entire time, it instantly burst forth. Xiao Shiqin's change in tactics was as smooth and powerful as a river. He seemed to attack and defend at the same time, flustering Zhang Jinji. The defense placed on the side failed to be of any use. Yi Shu didn't command his troops in this flank, but personally led the way as the main attacker. His battle mage tore through their ranks with Su Mucheng's launcher freely opened his left and right sides. This familiar scene once again appeared in Zhang Jinji's eyes, except it was all happening close to him as if they were in a match. You really are too troublesome. I'm going to need to punish you out of battle. Yi Shu swiped his mouse and let there be light spear stabbed towards Misty Mountains. Chapter 747. Huge success. How familiar. Zhang Jinji thought to himself, as the spear closed in on him. The name Let There Be Light only sounded mighty. In reality, who knew how much of a difference there was in strength between it and one autumn leaf? Even so, Zhang Jinji could see one autumn leaf style emanating from Let There Be Light, or perhaps that was simply a reflection of the player's style. Zhang Jinji obviously didn't find Let There Be Light familiar at all. When the spear came, he pushed down with his hand. Misty Mountain immediately rolled away, while calling for his nearby allies to shield him. Zhang Jinji had no intention of fighting Yi Chu's battle mage with his cleric, even if his cleric had superior equipment compared to Yi Chu's battle mage. The nearby Tyrannical Ambition players heard Zhang Jinji's call for help and immediately rushed over. They also knew that this battle mage was Yi Chu. How could they dare to be careless? Although they clearly had the advantage in numbers, they were actually mostly on the defensive, but before they could gather together, a satellite beam descended from the sky. The pillar of light split into several smaller pillars and began to expand. Satellite beam was being manually controlled by Su Mucheng to strike these nearby players. Several characters were enveloped by the light. They could barely protect themselves, so how would they have any time to block Yi Shu? Yi Shu seemed to have already known that this would happen. Let There Be Light completely ignored these Tyrannical Ambition players and dashed between them. His battle mage thrust his spear towards Misty Mountains once more. Zhang Jinji didn't think the assistance he called for wouldn't be of any use. It was as if they weren't even there. Yi Chu and Su Mucheng hadn't been secretly practicing, right? How else could their synergy still be so perfect? His astonishment wouldn't help him dodge this strike though. Let There Be Light struck Misty Mountains with a circle swing. He then shook his sleeves and sent out a witch's shadow cloak. Level 20 and below mage skills could also be learned by battle mage. Let There Be Light had clearly added a point to this skill. Shadow cloak wasn't used on Misty Mountains, but rather the several players struck by satellite beam. After wrapping them into a bundle, he followed it up with a falling flower palm to send them all flying away. When he turned back, Zhang Jinji's Misty Mountains had just gotten up. Let There Be Light stabbed at him once more. A normal player definitely wouldn't be able to dodge this strike, but Zhang Jinji wasn't a normal player. Even though he wasn't using a combat class, how could a pro player not practice dodging basic moves like a simple spear thrust? As the spear approached, Misty Mountains rolled to the side. Zhang Jinji suddenly heard a bang. Smoke and fire erupted, and Misty Mountains was knocked back. Su Mucheng again. A perfectly timed and coordinated attack rendered Zhang Jinji's predictions completely helpless. The best pair was a 1+1 is greater than 2 existence. Fighting against the two of them alone was much too difficult. Misty Mountains was naturally blown back into Let There Be Light spear and Yi Shu's attack. Zhang Jinji was always skilled enough to survive on his own for a while. However, he had to split his attention to lead Tyrannical Ambition's troops, while facing the coordinated attacks from the best pair. It was equivalent to sacrificing himself. Zhang Jinji tried his hardest to survive, while searching for reinforcements, but before anyone could rescue him, Tyrannical Ambition's frontline collapsed. Xiao Shiqin's agile counterattack, along with Yi Chu's sudden flank, completely destroyed Tyrannical Ambition's push. Zhang Jinji's Misty Mountain hadn't lost much health. Zhang Jinji instantly understood. Yi Chu's attack towards him hadn't been to kill him, but rather to distract him. Yi Chu didn't allow Zhang Jinji to concentrate on commanding his troops. Instead, tyrannical ambition was thrown into disorder while trying to protect their god. And the result? The result was what had just happened. A complete collapse. Zhang Jinji hadn't been able to escape from their attacks either. Perhaps he could hurry and switch accounts in order to reorganize his troops. Zhang Jinji looked left and right. In Tyrannical Ambition's game studio, there were several core elite members participating in this battle. Zhang Jinji could switch places with any of them to break free from his predicament and return to leading his troops. But would that work? Zhang Jinji glanced at their screens. The battlefield had already turned into chaos. They were practically fighting with no strategy and just joined the fray. Zhang Jinji sighed. He felt like switching accounts wouldn't make that much of a difference at this point. Look, it's a good thing that we didn't join, Wei Chen joyfully told Samsara's guild leader, 3 Realms 6 Paths. Blue Brook Guild joined and had been forced to retreat. Shortly afterwards, Tyrannical Ambition was utterly defeated. This scene seemed as if Samsara not joining was a wise decision, but 3 Realms 6 Paths kept feeling like something wasn't right. What wasn't right? He couldn't figure out what though, but the scene in front of him showed that despite having God Zhang Jinji leading, Tyrannical Ambition's elite forces were still defeated. It seemed as if there really had been no point in Samsara joining the battle. Even if they had gone over carrying their pride as the champions, they would only be smearing their own name. After routing Tyrannical Ambition, the 4-guild alliance quickly contracted and widened their defensive line. As for Tyrannical Ambition, after being defeated, they reorganized and left without a pause. There were a few guilds left who tried to break through, not understanding the situation. All of them were met with bleeding heads. In the end, the system announced that Yishu's 4-guild alliance had killed Red Mage. D*MNIT, Wei Chen roared loudly. Samsara's players quickly consoled him, forget about it. We were already expecting this to happen. Were you hoping for some sort of miracle? Wouldn't it have been nice if the server had suddenly gone down, Wei Chen hatefully said. Glory's servers hadn't gone down for many years now. The game company maintained their servers exceptionally well. Wei Chen grumbled and complained to Samsara's players in-game. Outside of the game, he was beaming with joy as he walked over to Yishu's screen. He was anxiously waiting to see what the boss had dropped. Wild bosses dropped several different kinds of materials, but not all of them would drop. Wei Chen only needed 2 materials. It was possible that these 2 materials hadn't dropped this week. The boss belonged to Heavenly Justice. As Lulan picked the items up from the ground, the materials were displayed in the group chat. Yishu's Let There Be Light belonged to this group, so he naturally saw all of the drops. Beautiful, Wei Chen suddenly shouted. One of the materials needed for Death's Hand, Heart of Desire, had dropped. One more. Wei Chen waited anxiously for it to show up. At the same time, he estimated how many had been picked up and calculated the probability of it happening. When the words Lulan picked up Red Mage's staff appeared, Wei Chen suddenly couldn't utter a word. His body completely relaxed and he slumped into his chair. He was silent for a good while. Right afterwards, it was time to distribute the goods. Yishu obviously requested these 2 materials. He looked back at Wei Chen, who wasn't suspicious at all because he trusted that Yishu wouldn't fail at this stage. Are you going to do it now? Yishu asked Wei Chen. In a bit. I'm going to go out for a smoke first. Wei Chen stood up and quietly stepped out of the practice room. Wei Chen wasn't usually so well-mannered. He rarely went outside to smoke. With his shamelessness, standing by the window to smoke was already giving Chen Guo face. The current Wei Chen had succeeded at the final step. He had finally fulfilled a long-cherished wish of his. In these past few years, who knew how many times he had dreamed of Death's Hand reaching its level 70 form, becoming the only weapon in the game that could rival a pro player's silver weapon. Reality had been cruel though. Gathering the materials just by relying on his own strength was too difficult. After Yishu had appeared, even the most difficult to obtain materials had been acquired. What had Yishu relied on? He didn't have the backing of a strong guild. He mixed in with these guilds and succeeded. When he reached the final step, Wei Chen suddenly thought of many things. Why had he clung to this silver weapon? Could it actually help him in the game? With just his skill alone, he didn't need a silver weapon to strut around in the game. And would he sell this silver weapon? Probably not. After thinking about it, this Death's Hand didn't seem to mean anything to him, yet he had spent so much effort on it. Was this love? Pa. Wei Chen felt disgusted at his own train of thought. But no matter how disgusted he felt, he couldn't help but admit that even if this wasn't love, it comprised of his many years of unwillingness to leave the pro scene. He had funneled all of his unwillingness into this silver weapon. This was different from creating the skill book guide. That had been done for its monetary value. He had never thought of earning money using his death's hand though. It was a reminder of all the memories he had made during his career. And he finally succeeded. More importantly, he was going to bring this weapon into the pro scene. At this moment, Wei Chen's emotions could truly be described as fluctuating up and down. He had thought about his many years of perseverance and his struggle during his 2 years as a pro player. He thought about the 2 punks that came to the team at that time and were now Team Blue Rain stars. This was all the past now. What's most important is that I'm back. Chapter 748. Information isn't easy to get. Wei Chen's mind was still wandering off when someone knocked on the door to the practice room again. Xiao Shiken moved fast and quickly walked out of the door. Yi Shu followed behind him, while calling out, "Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Why not play for a little longer?" No need, Xiao Shiken hastily declined. "I've got to get back. There's a bunch of stuff in the team that I've still got to take care of. I've been out for too long already, so it wouldn't be good to overstay my welcome. It's the holidays right now. What stuff could you possibly have to do?" Wei Chen immediately interrupted. "Why not play a bit more?" The expression on Xiao Shiken's face looked like he had just eaten a bittermelon. "I just arrived. There's a lot of stuff on the team that I need to understand." "Really?" Yi Shu laughed. Xiao Shiken was gloomy. Normally, for his purpose in coming here, their polite request for him to stay longer was an opportunity that he had most wanted, but would never obtain. Allowing the current to push the boat by staying longer and observing their team more was usually a good thing, but was that the case now? While others would fight for such opportunities, Xiao Shiken braced himself and hastily tried to leave, especially when Yi Shu laughed. Really? It made him feel like he had been completely seen through. He was certain that the other side had guessed his intentions in coming here, but if no one poked a hole through the window, wouldn't they have to continue pretending? However, Xiao Shiken didn't feel good faking it. He wanted to hurry up and leave. If he didn't leave now, another boss would spawn in the meantime. Should he help or not help? Just when things had reached this step, Xiao Shiken's cell phone started ringing and vibrating. Xiao Shiken was overjoyed. He quickly took out his cell phone, and indicated to Yi Shu and Wei Chen that he needed to pick up the phone. Without saying anything more, he waved his hands wildly to say goodbye and immediately ran out, while asking, "Hello, hello, hello? Are you busy?" the person on the other side of the phone asked. Xiao Shiken had just gotten to the staircase and asked back, "Who is this?" "It's me, Zhang Jinji." Bang 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 bang. Xiao Shiken's phone rolled down the stairs. Happy Internet Cafe's stairs were fairly normal. They were built using wooden boards, so when his phone fell, it made a loud sound. In the blink of an eye, it had already fallen to the bottom. The back cover and battery had flown out. By the time Xiao Shiken picked up all the scattered cell phone parts, the call had dropped. What else could Zhang Jinji be calling him for? Of course it was to ask why he was helping Yi Chu. According to common sense, if the two were participating in the Challenger League on different teams, shouldn't they be opponents? That wasn't something easy to explain. Xiao Shiken was conflicted. He couldn't just tell Zhang Jinji that he had shamelessly barged into their practice room to find out about the enemy, right? During his moment of hesitation, Xiao Shiken assembled his cell phone back together. The several cracks on the screen made his heart hurt. He tried turning on the cell phone. Luckily, it still worked. It could still power on. Right when the cell phone startup screen ended, another phone call came. The name flashed and flashed. It was Zhang Jinji again. "Hello," Xiao Shiken left the internet cafe, while picking up the call. "What happened?" Zhang Jinji asked. "I dropped my cell phone on the ground." Xiao Shiken knew that Zhao Jinji was probably asking about that. "You were the one commanding Radiant and Parade, right?" The question finally came. "That was me," Xiao Shiken said. "Why did you go over to that side?" Sure enough, Zhang Jinji was very suspicious of Xiao Shiken's position. "Sigh. We'll be meeting in the Challenger League, no? I was trying to figure what their situation was like." In the end, Xiao Shiken spoke the truth. "Oh, how is it going on their side?" Zhang Jinji asked. The majority of them are new players, Xiao Shikan said. He hadn't forgotten his purpose in coming here. While he had commanded Radiant and Parade, he still gathered quite a lot of information. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun were already quite skilled. To players in the game, these two were certainly top experts and not new players. Indeed, for in-game players, Tang Ru and Steamed Bun had already played for half a year. How could they still be considered new players? Games with too steep of a learning curve rarely thrived in the market. But Xiao Shikan was looking at them from a pro player's perspective. Under his keen observation, playing Glory for 7 months was still too short. Xiao Shikan quickly saw numerous areas of the game that the two weren't familiar with. Their newness to the game was a bit frightening, even if their mechanics were outstanding. And that Qiao Yifan, who Dao Zhan had attached a lot of importance to. Xiao Shikan had observed him several times and felt that although his placement of ghost formations were not bad, there was nothing particularly noteworthy. Maybe he wasn't going all out because he was fighting against normal players? Xiao Shikan had carefully observed each person on Team Happy, and these were the conclusions that he had more or less reached. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun were fairly easy. He quickly saw through them. It was Qiao Yifan, who Xiao Shikan had to repeatedly observe. In the end, he still couldn't make any definite verdicts. When Zhang Jinji heard Xiao Shikan say that they were mostly novices, he casually commented, "New players aren't that easy to grasp." Xiao Shikan agreed. In fact, he didn't continue staying in Happy's practice room for this reason. If he could have found more information on them, he wouldn't mind helping them snatch another wild boss, but how could one or two of these wild bosses be a deadly threat to Excellent Era? Xiao Shikan doubted it. After observing the 3 players' performances, Xiao Shikan didn't feel like there was a need to stay any longer. Xiao Shikan understood why Zhang Jinji said that new players were difficult to understand, especially Tang Ru and Steamed Bun. These two were the most difficult kind of new players to grasp, because not only were they new to the pro scene, but new to Glory as well. Such a degree of newness implied that they had a lot of room to grow. Everyone had different personalities and different levels of talent. Who knew how much one would improve after so long? For new players, grasping their present strength was meaningless. It would require long-term shadowing of their growth to truly understand them. As for Qiao Yifan, his foundation in Glory was sturdy. He deserved to be called a player from Team Tiny Herb. However, his performance also showed that he had a lot of room to grow, or perhaps he was a master displaying a small part of his skill. In any case, Xiao Shikan wouldn't be able to get anything more out of him by staying. But it looks like Yi Chu is doing quite well. His team has made you worried enough to personally pay them a visit, Zhang Jinji said. It's never bad to be careful. After all, he is Yi Chu, Xiao Shikan said. Yeah, Zhang Jinji added. The two then started to chat about other things before hanging up. Zhang Jinji mainly called to figure out why Xiao Shikan had been helping Yi Chu. Once he knew that it had only just been a temporary alliance, he relaxed. If he needed to face these two master tacticians in future confrontations, Zhang Jinji would need to completely redraw his plans. After they got the information that they wanted, the two hung up. Meanwhile, an atmosphere of nervousness could be felt in Happy's practice room by all, yet Wei Chen wasn't there. Do you think it'll be successful? Chen Guo was playing, but her mind wasn't there. She stared with fixed eyes at her screen, when she suddenly asked Yi Shu. From what we've seen, there should be no reason that it should fail, Yi Shu said. What if it fails? Then we'll need to find the reason and fix it, Yi Shu said. Ha ha, Steamed Bun suddenly laughed, this is something even little kids know. You even need that to be taught to you? Chen Guo nearly died from anger, but what could she do? Steamed Bun was right. Fix the mistake. Who didn't know that? After a long time, Chen Guo couldn't sit still. She opened the practice room door and looked out. When she returned, she muttered, why isn't he back yet? For the final, most nerve-wracking step, she had given him a private room to prevent anyone from bothering him. Everyone else was still in the practice room. The scene looked as if they were waiting for the news of the baby's delivery. Who knew how much time passed? Finally, someone knocked and pushed open the door. Wei Chen held a cigarette in his mouth, his face completely smug. He didn't attempt to hide his joy at the success as he walked in. For a moment, Chen Guo felt dizzy because she had the hardest time keeping her calm, so she kept overthinking. With her understanding of Wei Chen's shamelessness, she thought he would certainly feign failure even if it had actually been a success, to deliberately play with their emotions. Who would have thought that he would come back smiling? Although his smugness made her want to punch him in the face, Chen Guo couldn't care about any of that right now. A success? Chen Guo wanted confirmation. HMPH. Of course, Wei Chen looked down at everyone's nervousness in disdain as if it had been an easy task. He seemed to have completely forgotten that he had been the most nervous one just a while ago. So this was where his shamelessness comes in. Chen Guo thought in despise. Afterwards, she saw Wei Chen swagger his way over, while puffing puffs of smoke. Chen Guo endured and didn't say anything. Then, he saw him flick his hands and throw Windward Formation's Warlock account card onto the table. Take a look, Wei Chen said as if he were the boss. Endure. Chen Guo quietly took the account card. She inserted the card and logged in. Yishu also came over to have a look. His character was still in the arena. Who knew how many times he would bully a normal player after upgrading his weapon? Chen Guo looked back and glared at Wei Chen. She opened up his inventory and hovered over his weapon. Death's Hand, level 70. Weight, 3 kilograms. Durability, 30. Attack speed, 2. Physical attack, 650. Magic attack, 899. Intelligence plus 66. Darkness affinity plus 30. Darkness resistance plus 30. Magic critical strike plus 14%. Magic cast speed plus 14. Cast range plus 4. Death's Door skill level plus 1. All the stats had increased. It couldn't be any more successful. There was also a +1 to a skill. After researching how to give silver weapons a skill level up, it was found that all silver weapons would level up a skill on its final upgrade. Death's Door? How common, Yishu commented. Death's Door was a warlock's strongest skill, so many would naturally use this precious skill level increase here. Chapter 749. All-inclusive. HMPH, you don't understand sh*t, Wei Chen regarded Yishu's comment with disdain. Everyone else raised their eyebrows. Calling Yishu, Glory's encyclopedia, as someone who didn't understanding sh*t was truly shameless. Powerful skills have long cooldowns and cast times. They also have low coverage during a match. Yishu said, using gaming jargon one after the other. Coverage pointed to how many times a skill could be used within a certain period of time. Apart from passives and a few other continuous actives with high coverage, the vast majority of skills depended on the cooldown, team tactics, and the player's style. A high-level skill like Death's Door was just as Yishu said. Its long cooldown alone determined its low coverage. TCH, coverage? What's that? Efficiency is what's more important. Death's Door is always cast to create opportunities. Do you know how many benefits an extra skill point can bring? Wei Chen said. A real match might not leave you that kind of opportunity, Yishu said. Opportunity is created, Wei Chen said. Tisk tisk, Yishu turned his head to look at everyone else. Look, this is a classic example of Team Blue Rain style. Su Mucheng giggled. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun were somewhat at a loss. Chen Guo wrinkled her eyebrows. Chao Yifan was a bit puzzled at first, but he quickly understood. Correct. This was a classic example of Team Blue Rain's style. Their team captain, Yu Wenzhou, was skilled at using tactics to create openings. Huang Xiaoshan was skilled at seizing opportunities, and now, Team Blue Rain's former team captain reflected this style, when adding a skill point bonus to his silver weapon, pursuing a one-hit one-kill opportunity. Then where do you think that skill point should be added? Wei Chen asked. Have you ever considered learning a new mage skill? That way, you can create more variations in your playstyle, Yishu said. Oh, you mean like teleport? Wei Chen said. Teleport was a high-level elementalist skill. Battle mages, summoners, and witches couldn't learn this skill on their own, but a weapon skill point bonus allowed them to learn it. Of course, it would only stay at the lowest level. Teleport was a skill highly favored by most mage classes. As a result, it was the first skill that Wei Chen had thought of. However, how could Wei Chen not have thought of something as commonly done as that? He shook his head in response. I don't think that suits me. Quote. Oh, if that's the case. You win, Yishu said. Bullsh*T. You think this senior doesn't understand? Wei Chen scowled. Since silver equipment was created to fit the player's playstyle was obviously of utmost importance. Blending in other people's thoughts or imitating another weapon would still result in a beautiful piece of silver equipment, but it was hard to say if the weapon could fully complement the player's style. Wei Chen clearly understood this concept. He didn't admire this mainstream design and stuck to his own instead. But soon afterwards, Wei Chen suddenly froze and let out an astonished expression. He stared at Yi Shu. Wait a second. Are you telling me that you can add a skill level onto each of your silver weapons transformations? Haha, what do you think? F***CK. How stupid. How many transformations does that thing have? Wei Chen cried out. Even Chen Guo and the others shivered at Wei Chen's words. If a skill could be added to each of the umbrella's transformations, not only could Yi Shu's unspecialized use all 120 pre-job advancement skills, but also a few high-level skills from select classes. Although these high-level skills would only be at level 1, their might at level 1 far surpassed the might of low-level skills with several points invested. Everyone already knew about the Myriad Manifestation Umbrella's characteristic feature and power, but they didn't know that it was still hiding such a broken Easter egg. It could even allow him to learn several new skills. Before level 50, the umbrella could transform into a shield, a spear, a sword, a tachi, a rifle, a mechanic box, a magic staff, an Eastern-style staff, and a cane, 9 transformations, but after adding new heavenly domain materials at level 55, I'm still researching whether a new form can be added or not, Yi Shu said. So you're saying that your weapon can give you at least 9 additional high-level skills, Wei Chen said. So far. That's ridiculous. For a moment, Wei Chen didn't know what to say. He couldn't describe his feelings with words. In this instant, he felt like his death's hand was puny. The Myriad Manifestations umbrella was all-inclusive. What type of person could think of such an idea and actually create it? I'll take my time. Yi Shu was quite calm. Research it well and have several hundred transformations. Wouldn't you be able to learn every single skill then? That's a true all-class unspecialized, Wei Chen said. Are you dreaming? Yi Shu obviously regarded what he said as a joke. At that time, Su Mukyu had put in all his effort to get the Myriad Manifestations umbrella to possess 9 transformations. His original design comprised of 6 classes, but he was able to add in another 3 transformations. Additional transformations weren't just for more skills. Different weapons of the same class had different characteristics. Every weapon had both physical and magic attack stats. For example, Death's Hand was a staff. It had 200 more points in magic attack than it did for physical attack. It was clearly suited for mage classes. For Nightwalker classes, the mage class would be a warlock. Warlock skills mainly dealt magic damage, so a staff would obviously be more powerful. If he used dual swords, he could still use warlock skills, but dual swords emphasized physical damage. His spells would be significantly less effective. Not only did the many transformations of the Myriad Manifestation umbrella provide new skills, it also increased the strength of certain skills. When dealing physical damage, a physical weapon should be used. When dealing magic damage, a magic weapon should be used. That was Su Mukya's original intention for creating multiple transformations past the original 6 classes. However, his conditions back then were limited. In the end, he was only able to design 3 more transformations. Strictly speaking, only the spear and staff represented 2 mage weapons with physical or magic emphases. 2 of the other forms, the shield and mechanic box, weren't even considered weapons. Nowadays, the heavenly domain had more options for materials. Yi Shu naturally began researching how to complete Su Mukya's original aspirations, which had been restricted by his circumstances at the time. The Myriad Manifestation umbrella's evolution was still far from complete. After taking a look at the completed level 70 Death's Hand, Yi Shu and the others logged out of the game. Wei Chen took back his windward formation and began showing off his might in the arena. When he saw everyone get up, he didn't understand. Where are you guys going? Sleep. In the future, we'll start working at night, Yi Shu said. Today was the 2nd day of the new week. Zhang Jinji once again ran to the game early in the morning to help tyrannical ambition hunt bosses. Yi Shu reckoned that this guy would be doing this for the rest of summer. He called Lulan Slash and the other guild leaders. They would start employing the time difference strategy. Those in the troops, who could freely arrange their time, went to sleep. They would start working once Zhang Jinji went to bed every night. They would be able to avoid Zhang Jinji for at least 8 hours a day with this strategy. It'll be 2 months at most. Sorry for troubling everyone, Yi Shu said. I've decided. I'll be spending my vacation at Happy, Su Mucheng declared. Great, great. Welcome, welcome, Chen Guo approved. She didn't give Yi Shu any time to say anything and welcomed her cordially. At this moment, Zhang Jinji was also reorganizing. Tyrannical ambition had good results yesterday, but they suffered defeats one after the other today. The previous battle in particular frightened everyone. All-star players kept popping up. Fortunately, he confirmed with Xiao Shikan that it had just been by chance. In the end, for group battles, people like Xiao Shikan worried Zhang Jinji the most. With knowledge that Xiao Shikan wouldn't appear again, Zhang Jinji felt much more at ease. He didn't need to do anything to placate the guild members. Failing to snatch the boss 2 times in a row was a common occurrence for any guild. It wouldn't injure their morale in any way. They were actually the ones concerned about Vice Captain Zhang. A few of them had seen Zhang Jinji making a phone call and noticed his calm expression return. They were secretly guessing if he was calling someone from the team to come over. That wasn't the case though. After news of another boss spawning came, Zhang Jinji gathered everyone together and set out like usual. He didn't introduce any new person or plan. However, this time, the boss hunt went smoothly. Zhang Jinji's most troublesome opponent, Yi Chu and the 4-guild alliance, never even appeared. It made Zhang Jinji feel like there might be some sort of hidden agenda being cooked up, so he stayed vigilant. However, Yi Chu never came. Soon after, he received a notification from the guild, reporting that most of Yi Chu's forces weren't even online, including the 4 guild leaders. Zhang Jinji didn't understand at first, until night came. Right when Zhang Jinji was about to go to bed, reports came about movements from the 4 guild alliance. Zhang Jinji stared blankly for a bit, but immediately felt at ease. The other side was putting knowledge of his private habits to use. Only someone like Yi Chu, who understood Zhang Jinji so well, could accomplish this. Normal players might not be able to utilize such a method. After clearing up the other side's plans, Zhang Jinji dismissed it with a laugh. He would rest when he needed to rest, and log off when he needed to log off. He quite liked Yi Chu's plan. Yi Chu found him troublesome and wanted to avoid him. He wanted to avoid Yi Chu if possible too. The other side took the initiative to avoid him. Zhang Jinji wasn't going to chase after Yi Chu and compete for the sake of it. There was only so much time in one day. Both needed to rest. A time difference was quite relaxing. Chapter 750. To be the champion. When it was about time for Zhang Jinji to go to bed, Yi Shu and the others logged on. As a result, they monopolized boss hunting that night. Their troops had never had such bountiful harvests from wild bosses before. Now they finally had the sweet taste of it. The alliance was currently in its honeymoon period. Everyone was in high spirits. Moreover, their day-to-day schedules being reversed would only last for 2 months at most, so many were quite willing to adjust their biological clocks. They would fight for the boss when it appeared. If there was no boss, everyone was free to do whatever they wished. By the time the sun came up, a total of 4 bosses had spawned and all of them were won by the 4-guild alliance. Everyone split the materials joyfully and felt unwilling to log off when dawn broke. Let's stay on for a bit longer. In any case, that guy hasn't logged in yet. We can leave when he appears, Lulan Slash said. I agree. Me too. Same. The other 3 guild leaders expressed their approval. When Yi Shu saw their indomitable will, he could only nod his head and decided to stop once Zhang Jinji came online. In any case, he also knew how Zhang Jinji lived like a robot. He went to bed at the exact same time every night and woke up at the exact same time every morning. When he would log on today would be the exact same time that he had logged on yesterday. Right now was still fine. It would be best if a boss would spawn right before he logged on. The boss spawns first. Zhang Jinji spawns second. The boss spawns first. Zhang Jinji spawns second. Quite a few players muttered these words repeatedly. It was hard to know whether to laugh or cry in response to their prayers. To their surprise, noon came and Zhang Jinji had yet to appear. After staying up all night, everyone was beginning to feel tired, but Zhang Jinji still hadn't spawned yet, so they weren't willing to turn in just yet. Yi Shu felt that it was a bit strange. Why wasn't he coming? Could he have seen through their intentions and wanted to deliberately cause trouble for them? It didn't seem like it. Yi Shu shook his head. This wasn't Zhang Jinji's style. Perhaps he had some other business to take care of today? Or maybe today was his designated break day? The first person to find out the truth was unexpectedly Chen Guo. Not in the game, but outside the game. Chen Guo had been browsing the internet out of boredom and discovered a piece of news. Tyranny was holding a press conference right now to welcome a new player, Lin Jingyan. Lin Jingyan has gone over to Tyranny. Chen Guo was looking at the headlines on the official website for Glory News. She opened up the stream for Tyranny's press conference. Therefore, this information wasn't merely just a rumor. When she saw the news, she immediately told everyone. Lin Jingyan, Yi Shu and Wei Chen were surprised. Lin Jingyan was a rare pro player, who was still in the scene, yet had played against the both of them before. Lin Jingyan had joined the Glory Alliance back in Season 2. He wasn't like the gods, who had become famous starting from their rookie years. Lin Jingyan was a player, who slowly made a name for himself step by step until he became considered as Glory's #1 brawler. That was just the class he played though. Lin Jingyan himself was a meek person. He was always very polite towards anyone that he came across. Unfortunately, nothing could stop the onslaught of age. As his condition fell, Lin Jingyan's reputation as the #1 brawler was constantly challenged until this season, when the rising star from Team 100 Blossoms, Tang Hao, challenged him at All Stars. Lin Jingyan had lost that match. It was that battle, which lost him the title of #1 brawler, even if he still held the strongest brawler character, 3 hits. People were already discussing how Tang Hao would rise if 3 hits belonged to him instead. Rumors of Team 100 Blossoms buying 3 hits never ceased. It was quite disrespectful to the person who currently used the character. The competitive scene was merciless though. People wished to enjoy a rising star than to empathize with the departure of an old general. When the playoffs arrived, Lin Jingyan's days only became worse. Team Wind Howl failed to enter the playoffs. As the team captain and ace player, Lin Jingyan couldn't escape the blame. Team Wind Howl wasn't a weak team. They had 2 all-star players and all-star characters, as well as this season's best rookie, Zhao Yuji. The other players on the team weren't weak either. Their final results just didn't match up with their strength on paper. Scorching mock and ridicule assaulted him, many of which were from Team Wind Howl's fans. Even the fans felt like their team captain held the team back. The more rational fans hoped that Lin Jingyan would abdicate his position and continue contributing to the team with his status as an old general. The more extreme fans described him as a malignant tumor. They vilified him wantonly through all sorts of means, telling him to beat it. Lin Jingyan was put in a difficult position. He didn't want to leave. He felt like he could still fight. He had played competitively for 7 years, yet he had never been in a single finals. Although there were many other players like this, others were others. Lin Jingyan truly wasn't willing. Abdicate his position and continue persevering, but not as part of the main roster? Lin Jingyan wasn't unwilling. He only felt that it was a pity that the club didn't seem to have any intentions of doing so. Whether it was within the club or outside the club never gave a clear response towards his position. They neither supported nor opposed it. Lin Jingyan had been in the competitive scene for 7 years. He obviously knew what the club was hinting at. If the club wanted to support him, the club would have announced their support a long time ago. Not saying anything didn't mean that the club was still pondering over what to do or hesitating on the decision. In reality, the club had already come to a decision. They just didn't want to make things too hard on him. Lin Jingyan expressed his devotion to the team. If the club coldly rejected him, it would hurt him and all of their fans. The club answered with silence to tactfully tell Lin Jingyan not to make any statements that would leave both sides in an awkward position. Helpless to his situation, Lin Jingyan could only stay silent. It wasn't a tactical decision. He just didn't know what he could say. Retire? Or perhaps find a random small team to join? Lin Jingyan had plenty of invitations, but his wish to continue fighting still held strong. He didn't want to join any of those middle-tier teams who were there to read books to the princes. If that were the case, he would rather join a weak team, which needed to struggle to avoid relegations. He would at least have a clear-cut goal. However, this was just a thought. Lin Jingyan truly didn't want to have this type of goal. Or perhaps at this point, retiring was truly the best option. Lin Jingyan was just about to make this decision, when an unexpected call threw his decision out the window. Come to our team. We have a spot for you. It was a very surprising invitation for Lin Jingyan. Han Wenking. Team Tyranny. Lin Jingyan would never expected have a top team would invite a declining player like him. In Team Wind Howl, their goal was to get into playoffs and perhaps even win a match or two in the playoffs, but Team Tyranny. They were the Glory Season 4 champions and a team who always aimed to be the champion. Their team captain and ace player were also declining due to age, but their team's goal had never once changed. This was a team which never stepped backwards. If they wanted Lin Jingyan to come over, Lin Jingyan was certain that the team needed him for good reason and not just to save him from the fire. After barely a minute since Han Wenking had talked to him, Lin Jingyan had already come to a decision. He called Han Wenking and stated, "I've decided to join Tyranny." Team Wind Howl didn't stop Lin Jingyan from leaving. They gave the go-ahead towards Tyranny's quoted price. In the end, the all-star player and former number 1 brawler, Lin Jingyan, was transferred to Team Tyranny for 1 million RMB. If this was during his golden days, it would have been completely unimaginable. Team Wind Howl prepared a grand send-off ceremony for their old general, thanking him for his many years of contribution. The meek Lin Jingyan couldn't bear any grudges towards his club abandoning him. After shaking the hands of every one of the club staff, the pro player, who had almost retired, once again set foot onto a path towards the championships. He took this step excitedly. At Tyranny's press conference, Lin Jingyan explicitly stated how he wasn't there to live a nice retirement life at Tyranny. He was certain that he would make contributions to the team. When the team needed him, he would be ready to go to battle at any moment. His words were quite tactful. Lin Jingyan implied he didn't care about his status in Team Tyranny. He was fine even as a substitute player. After all, with his status, it was easy to think of him as being a part of the main roster. Quite a few had already started to spread rumors just after the announcement. Many didn't look highly upon Tyranny's trade. They thought that a pro player like Lin Jingyan, who was at the end of his career, might argue about his position on the team and his opportunities to go on stage. If the team didn't handle his requests well, there could be quite some conflict in the team. Lin Jingyan's statement was naturally aimed towards those who held these doubts. Lin Jingyan wanted to dispel any suspicion, yet who would have thought that Tyranny would be the ones who countered his statement? Team Tyranny's Han Wenkin gave a clear statement to the media. Lin Jingyan will be an important part of Team Tyranny next season. The club is currently creating a brawler character just for him. Inviting Lin Jingyan to our team is for one reason only, to be the champion. His words held a completely different meaning compared to Lin Jingyan's words. Lin Jingyan didn't mind though. Creating a character specifically for him, as well as the team inviting him, showed him how much Tyranny valued him. Lin Jingyan's uneasiness towards his acceptance of the invitation was now completely eliminated. From now on, he would be a part of Team Tyranny. Here, not just entering the playoffs, but he might even have a chance to become a champion.